Okay, we're ready to roll. It's my pleasure today to welcome Mayor Andy Schor to our meeting. And Mayor, as you know, Andy is currently the mayor of Lansing. He was first elected in 2017, re-elected in 2021. During his time in office, Mayor Schor has hired a sustainability manager for Lansing, the very first time that that's happened, created an advisory commission on sustainability. And in early 2023, he officially adopted the first sustainability plan that the city's ever had. Yay. He's a member of the Climate Mayors Group, and in 2017 was a signatory to the Climate Mayors Pledge to remain in the Paris Climate Accord after the president took the US out of that agreement. Before becoming mayor, Andy Schor was representative of the 68th district in the Michigan House, where he served from 2013 through 2018. That included most of the city of Lansing and all of Lansing Township. And before that, from 2003 to 2012, he was a member of the Ingham County Board of Commissioners. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mayor Schor.
Thank you. There we go. Okay, just want to make sure I'm off mute. That's a very good summary. I appreciate that. I'm gonna have to remember all that. I probably have till about 3:15 because I've got another meeting at 3:30, so I may need a little bit of time to get from one place to another. Well, I appreciate it. First, thank you all for being on our sustainability commission. You know, I know that when we established this, there was a tremendous amount of interest, which is expected, and we really had to focus on those that we thought could make the most impact. And so, thank you all for agreeing to serve. It's been the updates I get from Lori have been just fantastic. You know, I've seen a lot of different product. You all have gone through our climate action plan and have really been wonderful for the city. So I greatly appreciate that and all of your hard work. It doesn't go unnoticed. All right, I'm putting my video on. I am not really in my office, although it looks like I'm literally sitting in my car now. So yeah, I know you had asked me about the COP28 conference, and it's funny because I got invited to that. I'm on the Conference of Mayors board, and I've also been involved with Bloomberg Philanthropies as a Bloomberg mayor, we call it, because I've been part of the Bloomberg Leadership Program and a few other things. You know, former Mayor Mike Bloomberg has been involved with a lot of the climate work, and we've worked with him. I've worked with him for 5 or 6 years now, and he decided, as a billionaire can do, that as that's right, as the most recent climate action climate conference was happening, he wanted mayors to be able to be there. You know, you see a lot of, and we saw it, there were a lot of advocates, there were a lot of nonprofits, there were a lot of state and federal level. He wanted subnationals to be there. So they put out invitations to, I don't know, 25 or 30 mayors in the US, and then probably another, I don't know, 70 or 80 mayors internationally. And I was on the list. And I thought as a leader here in the States with the US Conference of Mayors, it was important to go. You know, that's something where you have to look at it and say, I mean, this is flying to Dubai. You know, is that something I can make that commitment? Is it something that, I should make that commitment? But I thought US mayors need to have a role and have some kind of impact. So I decided to go, not really knowing what I was getting myself into. But I went, and it was an incredible experience. You know, it was my first time in Dubai, certainly, and they had a whole area blocked out just for the COP. There was a large green zone, which is where kind of random citizens can go and learn about history and climate. And we walked around that a little bit, just, for the public part. And then there was a blue zone, which is where the kind of the business is done. We were invited. I was there for 5 days. Uh, we were invited to to be part of the Bloomberg. His did his own session. It was a lot of different um, uh, like panels and sessions and things. So he did a 2 day session on his own with mayors. So there were about 120, 130 of us again. And they went through a lot of the things that we should look at subnationally. In addition, they were in the blue zone. There were a variety of different buildings and things where you could go. I watched Al Gore speak, and that was it was interesting to see the former vice president. We did not get into some of the bigger panel stuff. So where the conversations were going on about definitions and things. We know that. So John Kerry was walking around as part of the envoy, and so we didn't do a lot of that. We did a lot of the Bloomberg specific stuff. His stuff focused a lot around, again, some of the things going on at the subnational level. He launched a youth program for climate action. So communities that cities that had representatives there were the first ones to be able to apply, and we did to help kind of educate youth on climate action, and then you can apply for programs and projects within your city. So we put in at the time I put in a document of interest, and our staff now is working on that to try and get a grant to put together a climate youth panel and educate them and get really our youth involved in learning. So a lot of our time there was spent on talking about how to keep the youth involved and updated and knowledgeable. A lot of the conversation was about international, the 1.5 degree increase since the industrial era, and how do you continue to keep an eye on it. There was a lot of conversation of, how do you deal with renewables versus non-renewables, and what transformation are cities and states and nationalities making. There's a lot of conversation about investment, especially from the World Bank. The World Bank had committed, I don't remember, I don't remember the exact number. I want to say it was like $20 billion. But many of the environmental groups there felt it should have been $40 billion. And so there was a big debate over the World Bank talking about all that they are doing versus versus the advocates saying not enough. A lot of it was not in the U.S. They were looking at um, countries throughout the world that don't have investments like we do naturally, and trying to make sure that those countries are seeing the investment from the World Bank, because a lot of them don't have any work going on right now in terms of sustainability. There was a lot of there were meetings with investors and things. We met with some folks that were looking at investments, the folks over in Montreal, and a few of trying to think of the UAE. There were UAE investors. It was very difficult to really grab onto them. They were looking to invest nationally and not subnationally, so that was a little more challenging. But we went to some of those and kind of shared, hey, come to Lansing. There's lots of great things to invest in. So that was a little challenging. So that was it for a good chunk of the 2 days. The other few days, again, I went to a few different investor things, one that was not on conference grounds. And then we went around to each different country had their own headquarters, and we kind of looked at, there were a lot of companies that were trying to shop around new resources and items, and it was like a big global marketplace where people could kind of say, hey, I've got the newest, greatest technology, and show it off. And that was a bit overwhelming. I tell you, I get pitched a lot of things all the time, and that was a bit overwhelming because it was like everybody, this is their place to pitch their thing. So we stepped in and saw some of that. I brought my Andy Kilpatrick, who's our director of public service, who's Lori's boss. He came with me, and he went to a few of those sessions. So it was really fascinating, and as staff they got to go um, see a few different things as well, and he could probably tell you about that when you meet. But it was fascinating to hear things from the Bloomberg side. Again, he always seems less um, reliant on the national and even the state, and he truly believes that cities need to be at least in the conversation. And I got to talk to a lot of folks from other cities that I wouldn't have otherwise. You know, I had a long conversation with a lot of different folks. The mayor of Madison, Wisconsin, is she's the chair of the climate mayors. So we saw her. There's a Tom Roach, who's the mayor from um, I forget, somewhere in New York. He is another climate mayor. So it was fascinating to see different things going on and to learn and to share ideas. The mayor of where was he from? From Poland. He was from a city in Poland. You know, we talked a lot. They talked about some battery work that they were doing, and I shared, our battery plant that we're or not our battery plant that we are building to assist with battery technology in cars, and people were certainly interested in hearing about that. So it was an interesting exchange of ideas between mayors from around the country, as well as again some of the work that they want to push for us to get to our youth. That was really their big focus, was how to get youth involved and bringing together mayors from all over the world to put us into our own kind of track over at the conference. It was fascinating.
Great. So first question, Heather, you can unmute and ask your question.
Thanks for your report, Mayor Schor. I was wondering, the big news coming out of COP28 was, of course, the call for phasing out fossil fuels. That's like the big message. So I was wondering how you are thinking about how Lansing could phase out fossil fuels with a local municipal utility. You actually have control over that infrastructure for our electric grid. And so I was wondering if you came out of COP28 with any plans for that.
But there was conversation, not to the level of where it was in the kind of the big room, but there was conversation about how we're looking at coal, how people look at natural gas, how they look at renewables, what's actually available and what's not. There's a lot of conversation about affordability. A lot of people talking about how they want to move towards renewables and phase out, especially the kind of the dirty the coal and other fossil fuels like that. I think that, I mean, I'm sure you read it. There were lots of politics involved because we were literally in an oil producing country, and next door you have country with liquefied natural gas, LNGs. So it was a very cautious conversation. I think everybody agrees that it needs to happen. It's just a matter of what that progress is. And again, for me, the conversation for me is always about what's available, what is affordable. The city of Lansing residents, we average $45,000 to $48,000 a year in salary. So what is affordable to our residents? We know in Michigan, and I think all over the country, you see a lot of NIMBYism with where solar is going to be put and things like that. So in Lansing, the board has tried to contract with some solar, and those contracts have been canceled. So again, it's what is available. We have had conversations with our school district about solar generation. How do you add renewable to your portfolio? And they're looking at on buildings, and they're using more energy efficient buses, and we're looking to move towards we're moving towards energy efficient fleet. So I think looking at some of the new technologies that I mentioned, I saw a guy who's literally putting skins on buildings, and the skins are taking in solar generation just through the skin. It's because I guess the skin has solar panel technology. Again, as that stuff increases, I want to be part of that. But you have to be as much as I want to do it as soon as possible. You have to be somewhat patient, because we have to have, again, it has to be available and has to be affordable. So there's always a challenge. It's always a mix. There's always a challenge. But for us, we're always looking at our capital C city uses and how we can bring in more renewables.
Thank you. Marshall, you're next. You can unmute and ask your question.
Yeah, thanks for the report. Kind of a two-part question. You talked about the battery plant. I like to call this the GM conundrum. So the idea that GM is building a battery plant, which I'm in favor for. I've been recycling batteries for a decade now. But to power the battery plant, BWL is talking about building a new gas plant, and maybe not just one gas plant, maybe two gas plants, maybe three gas plants to accompany the 12 industries that are going to follow potentially. They have all these proposals for side industry. And so, you take a look back at 2017, we delivered hundreds of letters to your office. You were just elected at that time, questioning and encouraging you to make sure that BWL doesn't build new gas plants. This was when they did their last $500 million. And at that time, I got the article right here, December 21, 2017, Peffley said it's 99% likely the proposed plant will be the last baseload plant BWL ever build. So how do we find ourselves, in this 1% scenario? And will you advocate against BWL, building more gas? And in the face of that, at the conference, did they talk about microgrids? Really, the potential of these DERs, distributed energy, is here today. So I'm just curious, will you oppose gas plants, and were microgrids discussed?
Microgrids were not discussed in the conversations that I was in. So no, that was not. In terms of the 1%, we have a $2.7 billion investment in the city of Lansing that nobody saw coming, with 1,700 jobs, which is going to build the batteries for cars. If we want to have that, we have to have something to power the plant. And we don't have the ability to do it any other way. So yeah, we all thought that would be the last gas plant. The coal plants have been completely shuttered, which is, I think, a good thing. The natural gas plants, right now, we need to have enough gas to be able to power a plant of 20 megawatts that's going to build the batteries for EV cars. If we want to have EV cars, we have to have the batteries. If we want to have the batteries, we have to be able to build them. And until there's enough renewable energy to power a plant to build the batteries, this is something that has to happen. So, again, they're looking at just what it takes to power that plant. And if there's a plant or a substation that has to come in for a 1.7 or a 2. Whatever, for 1,700 jobs and a $2.3 billion investment into our economy, that's the 1%. I don't think anybody thought we would land something like that, but we did, and I think that's a testament to Lansing. It's a testament to us being able to have the workers, the skilled workers, and the employment that's going to come along with that, and being able to bring in new automobiles. We're bringing in $8 million, $10 million, I guess, in total from the federal government for EV chargers. I mean, we are now the EV capital of, I don't know if capital of the world, but we're going to have the batteries being made here, the cars being made here, and we're going to have the EV technology. So that's just the hard reality of, if we want to have it, we have to be able to power it.
Okay. Thank you. I've got Nicole, then Tom, then Dusty. Okay, Nicole, if you want to unmute and ask your question.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so
I can.
I did put something in the chat, but I'll just maybe read it. But ahead of time, sounds like a lot of the time there's this thought of like, and it's true, it's very large problems. It's complicated solutions, and I'm wondering about how and in what capacity sort of nature-based solutions made it on the agenda at the conference, because they often seem to not get on the agenda, frankly, probably because they're not seen as like money makers and particularly to economic interests. However, as I write in my comment, there are numerous studies and projects confirming the very high return on investment myriad positive outcomes related to green infrastructure and nature-based solutions. So I'm wondering, how will strategic planning in Lansing take advantage of remediating the biodiversity crisis while also reaping these benefits of carbon sequestration, stormwater mitigation, heat island mitigation, and green spaces as mental health oases? So I'm wondering if you can commit to increasing pollinator-friendly biodiverse habitat as a key foundational element of a climate sustainability plan.
Boy, there's a lot into that comment. And to be honest
It's
with you,
basically,
again,
it's
we're talking
plant
about
more.
what we
Mhm.
there was I'd say talk of renewables and utilizing renewables at the conference in Dubai, and we've had that same conversation here. And certainly we want to, if you talk about natural, we want to harvest as much solar, we want to take in as much wind as we can, but Michigan is challenged with the best places to get wind are in the Thumb area and off Lake Michigan, and again, you get the NIMBY issues if people don't want it, so it's hard to site it and things like that. So we're certainly into that. Pollinators are a
Okay.
whole different issue. Now
I
you're
mean,
talking about
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was saying it's a matter of green infrastructure and nature-based solutions. And really I don't see that they need to be considered separate, because they're talked about separately so often. This biodiversity from, this notion of the be all and end all of responding to climate has to do with energy, which also of course happens to be linked to money and investments in that way. So it's really just sort of a basic of including this into the fold in many opportunities there are to do that. Even thinking about something like solar siting, why can't that be contractually part of that? Is the planting of biodiverse habitat? When where there's construction jobs, part of the contracts typically is like, okay, reseed it with grass when you're done. How about reseed it with quality habitat? Because it does do things like sequester carbon. It helps with stormwater mitigation. It helps with heat islands, all these human benefits, but also benefits to, frankly, humans aren't the only ones on the planet. We are very much dependent on the other species on this planet. And a real low hanging fruit is to be aware of that and the steps we can take this upcoming season to respond to the biodiversity crisis and also get all these benefits that come with conscientiously increasing the quality and biodiversity of our habitat, at least on public spaces, and certainly encouraging that among the private sector.
Yeah, we do that with, and I mean, we do that with public spaces. We've got some of that. Again, we're always looking at options with public spaces. We're we're trying to expand green.
Uh-oh. I lost him. Oh no. Well, we'll see if he comes back.
I wonder how long it'll take for him to figure out that he's gone.
I don't know. Oh, there he is.
Here we come.
Hello.
Yeah.
Oh,
Hey, you're
sorry.
back. Yeah.
My phone dropped off. I don't know what happened.
It,
Okay. Can we hear? Are you all still there?
Yep, we're here. Okay, good. You're back. Can see you.
Okay.
All right.
Sorry. No, sorry about that. So again, I don't wholly disagree with the premise, but again, there's a push and pull when it comes to the citizens of Lansing in terms of about green space. We certainly are. I'm certainly very interested in more green space. We're trying to add green space over on the west side. We've done these islands that were I forgot what they're called, the rain islands, where it helps the environment. We're looking at our tree canopy. We're doing a lot of the green work. So we do what we can do. We actually are when we do incentive work, we do a lot of requirements for, thank you. We do a lot of, we do a lot of work with public space. So, when we did EDS, the old EDS building on the south side, we required them to put green space back in and get rid of a whole lot of that concrete jungle parking lot that they had, and they did it. They didn't want to, but they did it. We did it down on the southwest side, with when Valeris Apartments came in. We created public space there. So we're trying to make sure that as there's development, there's green space as well. So that's part of the plan. Again, is it everything you all want? I'm sure it's not. There's always a give and take between affordability, what's, access, and what we can do. But that's certainly been a part of my development philosophy is let's include public space and green space as we do developments. When we give brownfield incentives and things like that, we push for public space. When you look at the Red Cedar, we put in all kinds of green space in the back, to make sure that for a variety of reasons, retention and stuff like that, things that are good for the environment, make sure that we had some public space areas that were green. So we look at a lot of that when we do development. And again, we can build that in as part of if you want an incentive, there has to be a public component.
That's great. Thank you. All right, next up, Tom.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, thank you for participating with us today. I want to mention first that your understanding of what the Board of Water and Light has taught you about the need for a gas plant accurately reflects what the Board of Water and Light has said. We are working on alternatives that apparently Board of Water and Light is still ignorant of. And so please do not agree with the assumption that the only way we're going to serve that factory is with a new gas plant. We will be able to prove rather conclusively that that's not true, and that other solutions are better in about a dozen different ways for providing the kind of service that is needed and doing it at equal or lower cost with lower emissions, and while simultaneously creating a lot more local jobs. Having said that, I'm very curious about what the plans might be for the climate youth kinds of projects that you mentioned. And I want to bring up the ideas of establishing a local climate investing mechanism, which is completely legal now nationwide under the Jobs Act, and already working to the tune of tens of millions of dollars in other locations. There's no reason why Lansing couldn't put ourselves on the map with that kind of local investing. And a third topic I want to raise is the idea of making an inventory of all the mid-Michigan innovations that are poised and ready to make an important difference in climate action, so that we can be implementing them here in the hopes that other cities and other locations will notice all these products and services that are ready to launch worldwide, but all suffering from having the catch-22 of having to prove that they can work before the markets will explode open to welcome those products and services. Thank you.
So I'll put it right back on you. For me, you're the sustainability advisory board. If you've got recommendations on ideas moving forward when it comes to the second point that you made, sure, send them my way. I'm happy to take a look. In terms of the climate youth, I know Lori is working with our grant writer on proposals that we're making to Bloomberg. So put it on your agenda and talk through some ideas. Again, this is City of Lansing, so I can't comment on what other communities are doing. And I don't have the capacity. I don't have a staff to put together a whole inventory. But if that's something you all want to take on, I have no issue in reviewing what you put forward. to see, if it makes sense for the city of Lansing or if any of the proposals make sense. This is something where I rely on folks who are in the field to say what we should apply for and what makes sense. So we're continually looking at ideas and proposals, not only for the youth climate, but for any ideas that are out there. The joke with the U.S. Conference of Mayors is that good mayors borrow and great mayors steal. So if you see, ideas from other communities and things that are going on, you talk about an inventory, certainly let me know if it's something that we can implement that others are doing. I'm going to look at, do we have the ability? Do we have the resources? Do we have the dollars? And if the answer is yes, yes, and yes, then yeah, I'm probably going to go forward. So it's just a matter of, I get a lot of people who give me really good ideas. They don't know how to make it happen. They don't know how to resource it, and they don't know how to get it funded. And that's a good idea, but that's not something that we can realistically move on. So any of that stuff that you guys see, you're the you're the sustainability board, and I'm always interested in hearing your thoughts.
Yeah, so let me just clarify for you, Mayor, is that not all of us are on the Sustainability Commission. Several of us are, but there are others
Okay.
who are at this meeting as well. So, but I am taking to heart your comments that you are open to listening to any of the ideas that we come up with, and I'm going to interpret your result as saying no matter if they come from the Sustainability Commission or from another group. All right.
If the group wants to provide a sustainability commission to review,
Yeah.
that's fine. Again, my look at this is always from the Lansing perspective. A lot of times we get folks from other communities that come in and say, you should do this, you should do this. I'm going to look at it from the Lansing perspective. And again, if it's something that makes sense for our city, then I'll absolutely review.
That's great. Okay, Dusty, you're up next.
All right, thanks. Thanks for joining us, Mayor Schor. It's good to see you again. I wanted to talk. I wanted to talk about the process that the Board of Water and Light has been following on this major electricity expansion plan, and which is related to the comments that Tom and Marshall made about the gas plant. As you know, the gas plant, at least one, if not two gas plants were proposed as part of this $750 million proposed electricity expansion announced last July, which is the largest expansion in the history of the Board of Water and Light. I was on the board and when this was announced, and left the board shortly after that. And I was very surprised that there was no public comment period on this major plan. I've never seen something like that in my 20 years working on environmental issues from a government agency on a major plan. What I've seen again and again through my career is that when public agencies propose major plans, they typically put out the plan in draft form with a fair amount of detail, often hundreds of pages, explaining what they want to do, why they're doing it, what alternatives they considered and decided not to pursue. Then they ask for comments from the public, they publish responses to those comments, and then only then do they move forward. I see Mr. Rawthorne on this call. He was on the Citizens Redistricting Commission. I think that's how they've been doing business, which is consistent with many other agencies I've seen. And so in this case, the Board of Water and Light came out with this plan, the largest ever expansion in its history. There was no public comment period. And 7 months after the plan was introduced, we've still seen basically no more than a one-page summary of this plan on a $750 million plan. And so what, I've heard Dick say we have to build this new gas plant, as you have said, but it's a little hard to evaluate those statements when there's just one page of information on this plan. And so, can you add your voice to the commissioners or contact the commissioners and say, we need to see more information on a $750 million plan so the public can be informed about what the Board of Water and Light is doing.
As you know, our commissioners are our appointees to that board, and up until now, I really haven't heard any complaints from commissioners on any of this. I assume that they're asking the questions as you did to the board. Those are fair, and at every meeting they have public where public come in and ask questions. Again, I do not come to those meetings, as you know. I have a city to run, and we have a board that has its independently appointed and approved commissioners. I'm happy to talk to Dick and ask him what information has been put out publicly. So I'm interested in that. So I'll see what information is put out publicly. But again, I haven't heard from any of the commissioners personally to say that they wanted anything different. I always assume that that they're asking the questions at the board, which is a public meeting, and again, the public can come in and provide public comment. So if there's documents that are being requested and aren't being shared, I'd be surprised, but I'll ask Dick about the process and how it's going.
Thank you. All right. I've got MC next.
Thanks. Yeah,
I've got about 4 minutes, so I apologize.
All right.
and I'll,
Quick,
actually,
MC.
then, so basically, I just wanted to say thank you. I think there is some stuff from the plans about composting, and I appreciate that. Yeah, there's going to be some new composting stuff. I think the Climate Corps. I think I want to just lift up what Lori's doing. She and I have met around composting, and I just appreciate that that's going on. So I'll just leave it for that and let Andrew go. And gosh, what Dusty said, like that seems so important, Mayor Schor. Please, yeah, try to get more information, do some more daylighting. That'd be really great.
All right.
I'm a huge fan of composting. My wife does it all the time. She's taught me how to do it. We've talked about that here. How can we do more of that at the city? And, can we do a robust composting program like we do with yard waste? It may be a bit aggressive, but I'm a huge fan. So I'd love to find a way to do more composting, but we'll see. Unfortunately, as I've learned from my wife, sometimes it's hard to teach people that because sometimes they throw a piece of chicken or something like that, and that's not the way it's supposed to work. It all got to be natural. So there's a lot more education with composting than there is with yard waste, but I'd love to find a way to get that done. I think that would be great.
Lori's got a great Climate Corps engineer, another sort of a youth, right? I think there's going to be some interesting stuff coming across your desk in this year. Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you, MC. Good to see you.
Okay, last question, Andrew.
Yeah, hey, thanks, Mayor Schor, for the opportunity to ask. I'll be brief and just ask, what are the city's plans for going after the huge amount of federal grant dollars out there right now for climate stuff? I'll just mention SEMCOG just released their priority climate action plan, which quantifies the capital cost savings of different transportation methods, of deploying heat pumps and electrifying homes, retrofitting homes, and the associated emissions reductions. Does the city of Lansing have any plans to do something similar with some of those strategies? And are you looking at any of the other grants, like the community change grants or any other climate grants that are coming down through the IRA right now?
We're looking at everything. Now, I will say in terms of, we're looking at literally everything. We have one grants person who's doing everything from transportation to reconnecting communities to, we just got, like I said, an $8 to $10 million EV chargers grant to a build grant. So we've got one guy who does all of our grant work, which is one more than we had 3 years ago. So we find all of the different grants, and then he sends them out to the right person. So a lot of them go to our public service, go to Lori. If it says climate or sustainability or anything like that, she's put on the list. We are applying for everything we have the capacity to apply for. It's just a matter of having the capacity to apply. But anything that we get, we send it out to the right person to get in, and then Zach McElroy in my office is tracking all of that. So yeah, we're applying for all of it. Anywhere we have a project, whether it's upgrading some kind of facility, we have pumps that are broken, we need fire trucks, we need, all the stuff. There's buckets of money out there, whether it's IRA, whether it's bipartisan infrastructure law, whether it's state grants. Someone just mentioned the Eagle grants in the comments. I think we know those are out there. I'd have to check with Zach or ask Lori if she's talking with Zach about that. We know there's revitalization and placemaking. There's tons of grants out there. So we are actively applying for everything we can get, as long as the grant matches a need that we have. You can't overstretch your capacity. So whatever we have the capacity to, we are applying to. So, all right, I apologize. I do have to run. But I appreciate it, and I hope I thank you all for all that you're doing.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Schor. I really appreciate you taking the time to meet with us. I think you gave us a lot to think about, and it's good to hear it directly from you instead of filtered through the media. And
Sounds great. All right,
all right,
thanks everybody.
before everybody departs,
Bye guys.
bye. Before the rest of you depart, Lori Welch is on the call, and she's the sustainability coordinator for the city of Lansing. And I think she can address some of your questions, Andrew, about what the city's plans are for the bunch of money that's flowing from the federal government right now. So Lori, if you want to unmute, we can, whatever you got to say, be great.
Sure. Thanks. Thanks, everybody. Yes, absolutely. Very much what the mayor indicated is that we are pursuing pretty much any funding opportunity that comes across our desk. And for me, I immediately look to see how it's going to impact the goals that are already within our sustainability action plan, because that's my marching orders. That's our pathway to meet all of these goals. Most of those grants that are coming through IRA and infrastructure bill now do that. So you mentioned a couple of the ones that are coming down the pipeline: community change. There's also the climate pollution reduction fund, CPRG. We are actively having conversations about both of those funding opportunities and trying to determine who potential partners are and whether or not the city might be a lead applicant or whether we would partner with another agency. So we're definitely looking at that and planning to be a part of both of those funding opportunities. But we've had some success this past year, as Mayor said, about the DOT charging and fueling grant. We've got a urban forestry grant through USDA last year as well. Those projects haven't even kicked off yet. They will likely kick off later this year. Capacity will be an issue as we pursue additional funding opportunities, but that's not stopping us. We're definitely hoping to get every penny we can for Lansing and the region.
Heather, you have a question or comment?
I wanted to ask Lori, because she was so kind to post the link to Lansing Sustainability Action Plan. And so thank you again for doing that. Hooray. I noticed it says that BWL is supposed to be 50% renewable by 2030. They're 80% fossil fuel right now. I don't quite see how, given their plans to build more gas plants, gets them to 50% renewable by 2030. So what does that mean for the sustainability plan if BWL goes ahead with the new gas plants? How are we meeting the goals of the sustainability action plan?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I don't know that I have an answer. I mean, some of those goals are very long-term, just really ambitious goals, and we'll continue to work towards them. And I think if you don't have ambitious goals, you definitely won't meet them. But the pathway to get there is unclear. And I think you're right. I think it's a really good point. I had heard that BWL was working on a new IRP. I'm not exactly sure what they're doing, and I don't want to speak on their behalf, but they may be considering that. I'm not certain.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for all your work.
Thank you, Heather.
Yes. Hi, I wanted to mention just a couple things. Lori, I'm very interested in the climate youth activities and what might become part of that. So if there's any background information you can share with us, I can help coordinate getting more ideas or different ideas or whatever we can come up with to support that effort. We can get those things back to you. And then I know MC just mentioned the idea of composting. I think it's of the utmost importance to understand that we can do anaerobic digestion on a drastically bigger scale. And Michigan State University already knows how to do that and is already doing it on its own campus. I'm working with another Michigan company that's ready to bring patented technology to convert the methane into anybody's choice of about a dozen valuable liquid fuels. And all that can be done profitably today. They just need to have access to the methane to get started. And they will bring their own $50 million to start up that kind of project in Lansing. So again, you know, if our group knows what is being talked about, we can provide technical information about best opportunities for bringing those things into practice locally. And that's what I see as the most important role for our group. But we need to get informed on a regular basis of what are the decisions that are being made and how might we be able to help with those.
Thanks, Tom. All right, so that's a plea for transparency, I think. And figuring out how we can stay informed about what's going on and what the plans are. And I know we may want to have a conversation, Laurie, with the whole commission about that topic at one of our upcoming meetings. What we as the commission members can do to help educate the community.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Agree.
MC.
And I think add sort of the idea of a cyclical economy, the idea that right, we keep talking about dollars and investments and things. And I think if we can sort of keep it somehow right with, yeah, Tom's mentioned it, right? Yeah, so just right, I think keeping transparency, but yeah, recognizing there's a cyclical economy stuff that we might want to pay attention to, or the board, or right, the advisory board. And lastly, I think Terry just really had a great little comment. It's like there's urgency, right? There's something about like, right, if we can't sort of feel the urgency, like, right, to try to, yeah, not manufacture it, but just like try to keep it urgent. Something that feels like, you know, we right, it is nice to sort of have these marketplaces and go to places, but right, there's something about like I know we keep trying, and I know Lori's doing it. Like it's hard to feel urgency in a bureaucracy, but it's just, yeah, we got to keep trying to keep that urgency alive, like transparency and urgency. So that's not sacrifice. Say, oh, they're going to streamline everything and have Dick Peffley because it's urgent, right? And we just, right, we're going to bypass all this, like what I think Dusty was trying to raise, you know, that idea that like, oh, we had to streamline things because it's urgent, or I don't know. Yeah, maybe it's not, but and it is, like we have to balance it. Okay, enough said, right? Thanks.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Terry, did you have something? You need.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, when MSU started sustainability program, the administrative leadership was not of the culture to reach out to the community and invite the community to be part of that. And several people have raised Tom specifically talked about the composting effort. There's a new administration coming to town. The last person who was sustainability director surprisingly stepped away. Maybe Heather knows some answers to this.
I do. I met with Laura Young yesterday.
Yeah, but I'm hoping that with some new players coming in, that we could connect MSU, its resources, its energy. I mean, brain energy and resource dollars to become more of a partner in the community to help some of this stuff happen. The sheer volumes of our materials, whether we're looking at solid waste or other things, can have community relationships. And when Lori set up the opportunity to bring in the MRF, MSU didn't want to play. There's reasons for that, but part of that is administrative culture. And I'm just kind of wondering if with the new president coming in, maybe a new sustainability director, Heather could let us know if that's happening, you can't wait for the university to reach out to you. We got to get the city to come in and try to partner with the university.
The university is really decentralized, and I don't expect that to change anytime soon. There is talk of a new budgetary model, which will create more central sort of control over various things, but it's still hugely decentralized. The discussion with Laura yesterday, there is no current process for hiring a new full-time sustainability director. She is functioning an interim function. The previous director who left rather suddenly, that was good that he left rather suddenly. When I met with him, it was a mess. His brain was a mess on sustainability. He was in way over his head. He didn't know what he was doing. And I think the way in which to think about working with MSU is to think about connecting with the people who are actually doing the work in various situations. It's not like it's ever going to work to come in top down to MSU and then you'll have access to all the things. MSU is too decentralized and too much a culture of ask for forgiveness, not permission, to really make that work. And so you have to figure out who you want to work within MSU, where the filaments of connections are, and then utilize those, foster those and utilize those, as opposed to having from a top-down situation. I would be super surprised if our new president could do anything about that within 5 years.
Culture's hard to change. Okay, MC, did you have a comment or question?
It
Give you
was
last word.
it was just trying to speak to Nicole's biodiversity stuff, but I saw that she left in the chat, so I didn't. Yeah, I think it's moot at this point. Thanks.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you all for participating. I think this has been a great meeting. It was great to have the mayor on. Lori, I appreciate you jumping in at the last minute and providing some information about what's going on in the sustainability department. So we can keep the conversation going. Always use the cafe listserv, post things on our Facebook page. Let us know what you think, and we'll see you next time we do one of these. Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.